Hello, I'm a cripple.
That's how we're starting the video.
Yeah, that's it right there. I'm a cripple.
Hi, I'm Steve Saylor, I'm blind, and if you're wondering how I'm able to play video games if I'm blind, if you take a look at the video here, or link in the description down below, you can be able to see exactly what I see when I'm playing video games. Today's video is very exciting because just moments ago, Ubisoft had their Forward event where they officially announced Immortals Fenyx Rising. I got to play it along with Grant Stoner at CanIPlayThat.com. He actually got to see a demo of it, and we're going to be able to talk about it today. We're going to give our general thoughts of the game, of what we played and saw, as well as our accessibility, what accessibility will be in the game officially, and sort of our concerns and what we're excited to be able to see and play, and all that stuff wrapped into this video. So let's jump into the conversation.
Chaos reigned, for here, monsters roamed free.
Can you not tell this story like I wasn't just there?
Zeus.
I was literally just there 2 weeks ago, and even if I wasn't, though I was, I'd be listening to your story for days.
It's called dramatic effect.
It's called Where's My Skip Button?
Fine. Cue title.
Ubisoft Quebec presents the video game formerly known as Gods and Monsters.
It is actually pronounced Ubisoft.
The French.
Grant, welcome. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing good. So you actually got to view the game, whereas I got to play it. Grant, why don't you explain as to the reason why you had to view it instead of being able to play this demo?
So for this demo, unlike previous events that we've been invited to, there weren't any accessibility options in the game. So I was only able to view it because I wasn't able to use a mouse and keyboard, and I wasn't also able to customize any controls or inputs that would have benefited me.
Yeah, and we should clarify that this is just based on the game demo that we played. There is going to be a full suite of accessibility options, and we'll go into what those options are later on in this video. There's a very limited amount of options in the demo that we got to see and play. But before we kind of get into kind of our accessibility thoughts, I kind of want to get your general thoughts, because this is the first time that we've actually seen basically almost anything of the game. They announced this, Ubisoft announced this game, I think it was last year in their E3 sort of press conference. And we saw like a little teaser of what it was, and obviously it was called Gods and Monsters at that point, and the game is now officially Immortals Fenyx Rising, which is cool. So Grant, I'm gonna start with you because you wanted to geek out for a second about this game. Why don't you explain why and just give you a full sort of nerd out moment?
So for those of you who don't know, in undergrad, aside from receiving a journalism degree, I also received a degree in classical civilizations. And for this game to be all about Greek myth makes me very, very happy. So to see like Zeus bantering with Prometheus, to see Minotaurs, to see like Hephaestus and his automations and all the different god abilities you get, and Atlas of Tartarus and the Phoenix that follows you around was very like, hey, I studied those things.
That's awesome. Yeah, this game is pretty much, I would say, the exact love child of Assassin's Creed Odyssey and Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. It pretty much, it's those two games combined, and honestly, it's the best features from both in this. I legit had so much fun playing this game. There is a lot in there for if you're a hardcore kind of like RPG sort of fan. There's a lot to be able to explore. You're going to recognize a lot of elements from Odyssey and the Assassin's Creed series up to this point that are definitely influencing this. And then you're going to see a lot of like almost, I don't want to say it's direct copies or duplicates of things in Breath of the Wild, but there's a lot in there that's sort of pretty much almost exactly like like how it is in Breath of the Wild. Like the Tartarus, like sort of like the vaults that you go into to kind of upgrade your abilities are pretty much like the shrines in Breath of the Wild. But it's just like you get to sort of unlock a skill point whenever you discover the vaults, and like you have a stamina meter for when you're climbing stuff. Like there's so much good stuff. Like all the good stuff from both games I think are in there, and it just like it's so much fun. One of my favorite aspects of this is the narration. This is what kind of adds the humor, adds the levity and the fun to it, because it's essentially it's being narrated by Zeus and Prometheus, as Prometheus is telling Zeus the story of your character Fenyx, and it's the banter between the two of them back and forth is by far probably going to be the most endearing and charming aspect of this game.
That was Typhon. Now free of the clutches of Tartarus, trying to cleanse the world of all the gods.
So this whole story you're telling me about how you think this mortal named Fenyx has a chance to free all the gods from Typhon's grip and then destroy him? Good luck!
Fenyx just saved your son Hephaestus. She recovered his lost essence and returned his godly powers. Are you even listening?
What?
Okay, I'll start again.
Oh gods, no! I have a better idea. How about you tell me all about it this holiday season? Wink.
Did you just say wink out loud?
Anyway, let's see what this place has to explore.
I love like you said, the banter back and forth. In ancient Greek myth, Prometheus and Zeus are bitter rivals because Prometheus gave man fire. And in this game, they're like two bros who are always trying to run up each other with like witty banter and ridiculous comments. It was just, I appreciate that. It was fun. Because I was saying this to my demo list too. In an era where everything is hyper realistic, Watch Dogs, Assassin's Creed, Rainbow Six, other Ubisoft titles, it's so refreshing to see a game that knows its humor and knows what it wants to do with it, and you don't feel obligated to be like, I have to murder so-and-so with this machine gun. It's like, I can be, a Greek hero for a few hours.
100%, and I would say it's probably the most approachable way to get into, I guess, the Assassin's Creed series, like even if like you're a kid, because we should say, like, yes, this is going to be coming out in December of 2020, and it's going to be coming out on consoles, including the Nintendo Switch, and it really kind of opens up to pretty much almost all ages. It's I think in a way, without sort of creating a Nintendo game, Ubisoft essentially created a Nintendo-like game, or at least their version of it.
Give it to me right now.
Yes, 100%. I want to play this right now. I had a legit had a blast playing it. Now, moving on to the accessibility side. So like we said, in the demo that we had, there wasn't really any accessibility options, or even actually a lot of options in what we played. But we did receive essentially a list of what is going to be available in the final version of the game. So, Grant, why don't you start us off? What options are you going to be able to see in this?
So for motor disability specifically, extensive controller remapping. It does not include everything. For example, the left and right sticks can't be inverted, but you can customize buttons in the game itself rather than having to go to the overall system and change them. Auto movement, which is very crucial, especially whenever you have such a massive open world game like Fenyx. If you continuously have to move, it becomes very tiring.
Yep.
By having this feature, whether you're on foot or horseback, you're just activating your character will move on its own, and so presumably you deactivate the feature. We also have aim assist, which personally for me I don't use. I find the systems in aim assist aren't as responsive as they should be, but for those who need it, that's awesome to have. Target lock on, which is very helpful.
Yeah.
Because there are certain, like, I guess they're kind of harpies, the flying enemies, you remember?
Yep.
They're pretty mobile, but they can be difficult to hit specifically with your bow and arrow. So to be able to lock onto them is going to be really nice and really helpful.
I think actually that might even be built in. I think there probably is a setting that you'll be able to adjust in the settings. But that one, to me, I actually noticed that when I played it, because yes, when you're kind of like have a bunch of enemies around you, or even when you have those harpies kind of like flying around you, I did find that actually there was quite a few times where my aiming reticle essentially kind of locked on to those, mainly the flying enemies, and it just sort of like, without me having to even necessarily like specifically target them, it just sort of auto locked on, and it kind of even did that for once you killed one of the harpies and moved on. It was smart enough that even with the amount of enemies that are around you, that if you were aiming your bow, it just sort of, I guess it just sort of like knows that you're going to be aiming for any of the flying enemies. And so it just it legit locked on to that. I was like, oh, that's actually quite impressive. And it helped me so much, even with the aim assist. I don't think it was on in the options. I don't know if this is something that's built in, but for me, I usually use aim assist quite a bit. And I could definitely notice that there was some assistance in aiming and target lock on, which was great. I absolutely oh man, it was awesome to be able to see.
These next few features I'm very, very excited about, and I wish more studios and games would implement them. Camera follow. Essentially, single stick movement, if you want to simplify it. So you don't need 2 sticks to control the camera. If you don't, you can just either have the camera always behind you and your character, or you can move it yourself if you need to. For motor disabilities, that's so nice. Active input devices. So essentially, if you want to use a mouse and a controller, or a keyboard and controller, or what have you, you can use both at the same time, and they function the same.
Yeah, I saw that in our list that we were sent, and I was like, I don't think I've seen a game have that capability before. Like, especially like on a PC level, where you yes, mouse and keyboard is something that generally a lot of players will probably use, but the ability to be able to use a mouse and a controller at the same time, I don't think I've seen that ever. And now, as far as even moving into sort of like the HUD and UI options, menu narration, this is definitely going to be one that's going to help a lot for blind players. It's going to be all menu options are narrated. It wasn't in the demo that we played, so we haven't had a chance to sort of hear what the narration options or see what the narration options specifically are going to be like. But pretty much they say it's for most menu contexts. A notable exception is going to be in the HUD itself. So probably there's going to be certain things in the HUD that won't be narrated whenever specific text comes up when you're in gameplay. Now, as far as other HUD and UI elements that I actually liked, this interface actually is very nice and clean and high contrast enough to be able to read, as well as actually some pretty large text. There is some small text here and there, but I think with the menu narration that it can definitely help. I think probably the only drawback or the hole that would be difficult would be in the regards to the HUD. Now, I think this design for the UI and HUD, because it's going to be on multiple consoles, including the Nintendo Switch, you can kind of tell that this was sort of designed in mind to be playable in portable mode on the Nintendo Switch. And I think they just kind of used that universal design across the board. So when you play it on consoles and when you play on the Nintendo Switch, it'll look pretty much exactly the same. Now, as far as other accessibility options, there are some deaf and hard of hearing options in there, including obviously Ubisoft's great suite of subtitles that they have available, and they've been building in a lot of their games. That'll be available in here. Actually, if you want to be able to read the full list of what options will be available and what does what, you can be able to go to CanIPlayThat.com. There's an article there that actually breaks down every single accessibility option there. Now, that's a lot. There's a lot that is in there for accessibility. So Grant, let's go back to you. What are your concerns about the accessibility in this game?
So, like Zelda and even Assassin's Creed Odyssey, it is very button heavy in the sense that you're going to be matching buttons extensively when you fight enemies. this is fully a button mashing game. There's nothing wrong with that. However, it may cause fatigue issues for players with physical disabilities throughout extensive play sessions. Every enemy on normal difficulty took at least, I would say, 5 or 6 hits. And then to use specific god powers, like the giant hammer or the airy spear, you have to hold like left bumper or left trigger and then press the corresponding button to activate it.
Yes.
And while the combat system is very intuitive and it's very simplistic, you still need to be mashing buttons consistently to defeat enemies. And that admittedly does concern me, but aside from that, it looks fun. It looks very doable.
Yeah, that's one thing that I noticed as well, even on kind of my playthrough. There definitely is a lot of buttons you have to push, and yes, you're right. With the special abilities, you have to hold the left trigger and the corresponding face button to be able to utilize it. Now, you don't have to hold the trigger for long to be able to utilize it. Basically, once you push the one face button, it will do the action, so you can be able to let go. But like the fact that you have to do 2 things at once could be difficult if you are having trouble to if you can only be able to use the controller in one hand, or you have trouble trying to be able to reach across from one side of the controller to the other. So there definitely is concerns about that. Another concern I have is that there is a lot of text, and even though there is menu narration, we don't know the extent of sort of how much. Whether it's going to be kind of like a Division 2 type setting, where it's just going to narrate just the menu and then that's it. They did say that it's not going to be in the HUD specifically, which it can be difficult because there is a few things that will pop up on one side of the screen that will have text in there that will be important for you to be able to read. So in that case, it definitely, like for blind players, it's going to be kind of like a mixed bag of really good accessibility that'll benefit, but then there's going to be stuff that's going to be missing that you might need a sighted assistance for, or more practice with it. Yes, there are definitely concerns, and it's probably not going to be able to fit every disability type. It does fill quite a bit of the spectrum for each disability type, but there definitely is some gaps in there from what I can see.
Exactly what you said, and the thing to remember is like accessibility is such a broad spectrum.
Yes.
That it's really hard to make it perfect for everyone. And with this game, I feel as if they're doing the best they can, and the best they can is pretty good.
Yes, Ubisoft has been working for years to make their games as accessible as possible, and they're very complex games. Like, they're not sort of simple pick them up and just being able to play. There's a lot of complexity in there, and to be able to make that as accessible as possible takes a lot of work. And we're not saying that this game is terrible for accessibility by any means. There's a lot in there, and including in creating some new accessibility options that we haven't seen before, which I'm really excited to be able to try. I personally would recommend it when it comes out. It's fun. I had a blast playing this. Is it going to hit all accessibility options? No, but it's definitely as accessible as it can be for the amount of time they've worked on it, and the amount of options that things that they've learned as a company as a whole when it comes to accessibility. Grant, what are your final thoughts on it?
Since I wasn't able to play it, I'm not going to give a recommendation as to whether or not you should purchase it. You can look forward to that when I review the title when it launches. However, from what I saw in the information provided, it's looking to be like a very accessible game. But I'm excited.
Me too. And we'll just we'll just have to see what it'll be like. So, Grant, where can we be able to find you online and check out your stuff?
So you can find me on CanIPlayThat as the mobility editor. I do reviews, feature pieces, commentaries, stories such as those. And you can find me on Twitter at supercrip1994, super_crip1994.
So thank you so much to Grant for joining me today, and thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you have any questions or comments about any accessibility that we saw in Immortals, make sure you leave it in the comment section down below, or on CanIPlayThat.com, or hit me up on Twitter at Steve Saylor and ask me questions there as well, or ask Grant at super_crip1994. He'll be able to answer based from his perspective on the accessibility of Immortals. If you want to be able to see more videos of mine, make sure you hit the subscribe button. If you want to be notified when new videos come out, make sure you hit the bell notification icon. Thank you so much for watching. As always, I remain obediently yours. See you in the next video. Bye-bye.